we're going to go over some tips and tricks for using ProDye and dyeing cattle prior to show or sale. There's a few things. Here's the kit of the ProDye. There's different bottles and we need to mix them equally. We've got a black cap one and a red cap one. This is actually the dye, and this is the activator, and we need to, no matter how much we put on them, we need to make sure there's an equal amount of both of those. So this kit actually comes with 10 bottles, and if we're going to only use 4, we just need to make sure that we use 2 of each. So we're going to go ahead and start filling this bottle up. You can use a fogger or a bottle. I will tell you that whatever you do, before you start handling this dye, make sure you put on your gloves, because if you get any sort of dye on your hands, it's going to be there for a while. It really works well. No matter if it's on there for a second and you go wash it off, this stuff will stain yourself and your clothing. So we use these gloves, and then as well, I like to go ahead and use an old jacket or even some old slicking pants and put them on over, because it will ruin your clothes if you get it on there. So we're going to put a few in this bottle quick. There's a few other things we like to do on cattle that have some white on them, and we don't want to get that white black. This heifer we're going to do is a Semitone, and she's got a little white up in her udder. And so what we like to do, we've got some Pro Gloss and some Pro Foam, and I like to put a layer of Pro Gloss on there so that dye won't stick to it. And then if you put a layer of Pro Foam on after the Pro Gloss, what happens is it'll just kind of coat that udder or coat that white spot that you don't want to get. You don't want to get all the dye on. It'll keep you, if you do get any overlap on that, it'll keep it from sticking to it. Now today we're going to be dyeing this heifer outside. We've got the ideal conditions to dye her out here. We'd probably advise you not to dye them outside on a direct sunlight day where it's really sunny. What happens is that sunlight will actually bake the dye onto the hair. So what we're going to do with this heifer is we're going to dye her, and then we're going to take her and get her out of the sun. We like to dye outside, tied to an old fence, or find a section of the barn that's old, because anything you get this dye on when you're putting it on it, it's going to stick to that gate or that fence or that cement. So you want to make sure you're aware of your surroundings as well. We've got a new applicator brush for the dye. We actually dye a lot of cattle that have multicolor. A lot of cattle are black and white nowadays, and this brush just helps us be a little bit more precise when we're getting around those spots. We use this on their ears, down around their hooves and stuff, if we're wanting to get head of cattle dyed for a show where you can't paint. So we'll use this applicator brush around those fine-tuned areas. When we're dyeing, we don't want to add anything to the dye. Some other conventional dyes that we've used in the past, we've used actual shampoo, or we put sheen in there, some different stuff to mix with it. We don't want to mix anything with this dye. We're going to mix it up just with the activator and the actual dye. Make sure that's all mixed really well. And then we're going to scoot over here to the heifer. I'm going to apply my jacket, and we're going to show you how to cover those spots we don't want to get black, and then we're going to go ahead and dye this heifer.